Nurgle has definitely seen a resurgence in the 1.1 update in Domination. The combination of larger starting armies, the cost reduction to exalted plague bearers and regular plague bearers, and the speed increase to those units as well has given Nurgle a new lease on life. And just been exploring this matchup a little bit recently from both sides, but this particular replay, I'm taking a pretty elite build. Like I said, I had played this matchup a little bit recently. A lot of it revolves around this big guy right here. Exalted Great and Clean One has that Mortis Engine effect, can drain a lot of your stuff as Khorne. My thought here was just to take a lot of elite stuff that can fight Khorne well enough in melee, since they don't have any missile units, they don't have a ton of mobility. I could dictate the pace of the engagements and just fight whatever I want to, and essentially win in combat with elite troops, hence my very tall, small starting army. We've got an Exalted Bloodthirster, Soul Grinder of Khorne, 3 Exalted Bloodletters, and some Flesh Hounds in reserve, 2 Cultists, a couple of Spawn of Khorne, 1 Dual Weapon Warrior, 3 Shielded Warriors, and 3 more Flesh Hounds. My opponent here, my patron, Mossy Toes, he's got Exalted Great and Clean One, as mentioned, definitely a win condition type unit here. 1 Exalted Plague Bearer of Nurgle. These guys, they got some more ammunition, they're cheaper, they're faster, just overall much better unit. They were already pretty decent before. Regular Plague Bearer is definitely much more cost effective. Even that minus 50 cost doesn't seem like a lot, but that plus the extra speed makes them much more usable. We'll see how they do here. I've got some Nurglings as well, and the Soul Grinder, interesting choice. Definitely deals some damage and helps support the Great and Clean One in a single entity fight. Possibly fight my own Soul Grinder. We'll see. Exalted Plague Bearers in reserve. We've got some Spawn of Nurgle, 2 Cultists, of course. Got Beast of Nurgle here, 2 more Plague Bearers, Plague Toads, 2 Furies, and 2 Nurglings. So let's get to it. We're going to be on the Battle of It's a Map, and in the past when I had played this matchup, I had used the Soul Grinder and the Exalted Bloodthirster. If you go back and take a look, one of the first videos I actually made in terms of the early access time period was talking about this combination of things, specifically to take out that Exalted Great and Clean One. But let's see how it does here. With the larger starting army, Nurgle can definitely bring more resources to the table to test. But just thinking about it, initially, as I talked about in a different previous video exploring this matchup, Exalted Bloodletters don't really have a great counter. Other than maybe magic or getting mass charged by like toads or something, getting shot up, they really don't have a lot of counters. Here in this particular battle, the mortar could do a substantial amount of damage, and the mortar is going to open up and already tear a hole into this unit here, take down 15 models, do a little bit of HP damage. So that's not great, but I'll just go ahead and start advancing with the doggos, with the Bloodthirster. Love the color scheme of this Bloodthirster, by the way. Looking very, very fearsome up in the sky. Floating pyramids right behind him. Love this map. Super, super cool. The little shotgun attack, too, that the Khorne Soul Grinder has access to is pretty decent. It's not going to do an insane amount of damage, but it will just kind of help him start to generate a little bit of value before things even get started. Nice charge there from those Flesh Hounds. Does a ton of damage to those Nurglings. Just trying to thin out whatever support units I can here initially. Start to deal some damage. My opponent here, Mossy, just pulling up on station, trying to decide. He's doing some pretty decent damage with the Soul Grinder, but he repositioned it away from my resources on top and forgot to issue an attack order, so I'm able to advance quite a bit of this space without having taken shots. Missed maybe like 2-3 volleys there. Hard to say how much of a difference that would have made. Probably not a lot, but every little bit helps, certainly, especially when you're up against these lads. They're ready to come take some disgusting rotting skulls. Oh yeah, look at the Nurgling Transformer running into combat. Gonna be a pretty brutal affair as they start to cut through chaff like it's nobody's business, with that charge bonus active especially. Meanwhile, up on the high ground, we've got a big pitched engagement. Bloodthirster comes down. We've got the Soul Grinder as well in combat against the Great Unclean One. So Great Unclean One here. Also important that I hold him away from my infantry, my expensive infantry, even though they do have magic resistance to help shrug off some of that damage from the Mortis Engine effect. They would still be taking a substantial amount of damage over time, so if I can fight him away from these elite expensive infantry, that's a benefit to me. Bringing in some more Hounds here, some more Chaos Warriors, and even more Flesh Hounds over there. Over here, same thing. The Flesh Hounds is being used to great effect to take out some Nurglings, secure this position, not allow my opponent to easily capture. But my opponent here, Moss, is going to do a great job in general of just summoning Nurglings onto the point and kind of capturing them out from under me, as I'm concentrating a lot of resources to actually try and win the blob fight, which is not always advisable. You can't always win the blob fight, Khorne versus Nurgle, but in this situation, I felt pretty comfortable with what I had. You can see that some of the Bloodletters have already cut through the front line there. The Nurglings got turned into confetti, and now the Plague Bear is suffering the same fate. Shielded Chaos Warriors pushing up to provide a little bit of heavy support, but Exalted Bloodletters definitely taking a substantial amount of damage. This unit hasn't dished out that much damage yet. These guys you can definitely see racking up some kills there. These guys up to 80 kills, so they have their extra little weapon damage buff from Hellblade active. It's definitely just a grind right now, though. Nurgle's definitely punching back quite hard, especially as this blob fight develops. More and more stuff is going to get in range to get drained by the Mortis effect. Area damage over time of the Great Unclean Ones. So let's take a wide view once again. Doggo's securing the far side. We've got some cultists, both cultists now trickling in for me. I believe the Nurgle cultists are already in here. Yep, already providing some nice armor sundering. And they probably have that item as well. No, looks like no item on this one. The other one not quite out yet, but let's see. Great Unclean One and the Bloodthirster trading pretty evenly so far. My Soul Grinder is suffering pretty badly, but he's able to hang on. There's no way for me to heal, though, whereas the Exalted Great Unclean One could pop an Overcast Fleshy Abundance here to get really efficient AoE heals. Let's look in. Bloodletters, I just love their swords, too. Like, some people were complaining that they didn't go with the more over-the-top flaming effect, but personally, I like this more kind of muted, like glowing, almost like glowing runic fire effect. I don't know. For me personally, I think it looks a lot cooler than just a straight up like torch. Anyway, Cultist gets in here. He's going to pop out a summon to help win this blob fight. The heavy Chaos Warriors also suffering some attrition damage, but also fighting pretty well here. Some Nurgle Furies get pushed in and try and take on what's left here. Do a little bit of support, maybe get some hits, bog down those Fleshhounds. More Fleshhounds just piling in. I'm going to try and group up all my Fleshhounds into like a big concentrated force, run around and get good value that way, but the points have just barely come online. We just barely captured that center objective. Capturing that far objective as well. At least I was, but it looks like I actually ran my Fleshhounds away before they could get the capture done. But Great Unclean One's just about to go down at the same time, though. But I think both of us have actually lost our Soul Grinders at this point, both having disintegrated or been banished. Exalted Bloodthirster also just about to go down here. The Great Unclean One definitely has enough health to survive this engagement. I'm just trying to deal as much damage as I can. In the meantime, the Beasts of Nurgle, while they haven't been contributing a ton of damage, they've definitely been helping in this fight. You know, a little bit of extra single entity chunk helps, and right there, they're able to force the Exalted Bloodthirster down, so I'm not feeling great, although my Exalted Bloodletters have managed to cut through more and more units without taking that much more damage. Losing out on leadership is definitely going to be rough, and I don't have that many great units for sniping out the Great Unclean One anymore, so big blob fight is really going to start to work against me. But able to resummon one Exalted Bloodletter already. Fleshhounds also over there capturing. The Nurglings are going to outweigh me in terms of capture weight, obviously, with having much more infantry models, but they actually get stopped just before they get on the point. A little bit of a blunder there. They do start to stand and hold, though, as a few of the models kind of trickle in. Speaking of trickling in, more like crashing in like a wave, these Exalted Bloodletters continuing to just steamroll through, absolutely massacring every green thing they come across. Probably some plants getting caught in the crossfire, let's be honest. Like, these Plague Bears are definitely a similar color to this jungle grass they're fighting in, so, I mean, I don't know exactly how good Bloodletter's vision is. I would imagine it's probably based on blood itself, right? Which I think they're maybe filled with bile instead of blood. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait till the blood DLC comes out to confirm that, whether or not the Nurgle units will in fact explode in piles of green goo. Be more appropriate, I feel. But anyway, the Hellblade pull all the way charged up, powered up. They're going to be just cutting everything down as mentioned. Another unit here did come to the center, but I decided to swing them out, help clear out those Nurglings, and I mean, thankfully I have plenty of supply at this point, can bring back the Soul Grinder, which has racked up a ton of value, paid for itself pretty much once already, just a hair short, but now has the opportunity to come in and try and finish off like this Beast of Nurgle. The Cultists all have straight up regeneration, right? So they will take extra fire damage. The Great Unclean One does not. He is just going to take damage, and dealing with him, little shotgun blast to the face. Here comes the Soul Grinder. I just love Soul Grinders, man. I know some people aren't the biggest fan of them in fantasy. They're more of like a 40k looking unit, and I get that. But at the same time, the demonic engines, kind of steampunk aesthetic, definitely something I enjoyed. I mean, we have a steam tank for the Empire. Why can't Chaos have steampunk things also, you know? And the whole, like, lore of it, that they are formerly demons who, you know, were like greater demons who were cast down, decided to make a pact with the Forge of Souls to try and come back and, you know, make a comeback. Anyway, lore aside, more Exalted Plague Bears going to come in, use their Death's Heads to finish off one unit of Exalted Plague Bears. We've got another Bloodletter summoned up, or yeah, Bloodletters rather. My own Cultists, having kept that pocket summon until the late game, we're out now able to hold Nurgle away from the objectives. I say late game, relatively mid-game in terms of actual victory tickets, but it's already been a very bloody and biley battle, as both of us have lost significant forces. The Great Unclean One just kind of chilling back for the time being, not wanting to overcommit to this center fight, but he is kind of hanging these spawn out to die. Once my summon goes down, though, it's going to seem all of a sudden a lot less risky, and he'll start advancing with the Exalted Plague Bears and with the Great Unclean One as well. That being said, I'm still dominating on the side objectives, and in terms of mobility, I've still got quite a pound force operational on the field. We're even going to bring out another unit of Exalted Plague Bears. Once again, as soon as those units go down, it's beneficial for me to just bring them back out. High DPS, fire damage, everything. It's great in this matchup, even though you don't necessarily need the AP, just high DPS in general. Definitely name of the game for Khorne. Fire damage is a bonus. That's kind of the tail of the tape with the Soul Grinder as well. You can see here my opponent honestly doing the right thing, which is to advance and try and fight on the point. It's very important for Nurgle that you not get sort of puppy guarded away in front of the objectives. Rather, you want to try and make sure you're getting your infantry models onto the point to maintain that capture weight. It can be a little bit tricky. Like, this is great, sending those Nurglings out there, although they are solo. We'll probably get eaten up by hounds eventually, just to keep me, you know, pressured. My units responding. If I don't respond, then you might even be able to get a cheeky little cap there. I am technically just barely behind in terms of actual victory tickets, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. More Furies coming in here. Got some more Nurglings coming in. Exalted Plague Bears should be able to fight okay, at least until they get surrounded by Exalted Bloodletters, which is exactly what's going to happen here. And the Soul Grinder also moving through the Flesh Hounds, fishy Flesh Hounds. I don't know. They look like fish to me for some reason. Soul Grinder also here. Gets a nice rear attack. The Great Unclean One is at its healing cap still. Almost 4,000 HP, though, left in the tank there for the big guy. So he is just fine for the time being. More Plague Toads coming out as well. They should be able to get a decent rear charge here into these Exalted Bloodletters. Maybe deal some damage. Flesh Hounds, likewise. There's not, I mean, the lack of anti-large you definitely feel in a situation like this with the Flesh Hounds and with the Soul Grinder. I think maybe actually giving the Beast of Nurgle like a 15 or 20 bonus versus large might not be the worst. As sort of a cheap support single entity, it's already not that amazing. At 800 points, it can pay for itself, but it often won't. I think if you were to give it a bonus versus large, the damage output would actually be much better, and it would just give you some tool to help deal with large armored units. Like right now, you can see once the Toads get a surround, they have high enough weapon damage they can just make contact with the Soul Grinder and actually deal a little bit of damage. It will take them quite some time, but with the Exalted Bloodletters supporting this engagement, it's not necessarily going to go great for the Toads. Oh, nice heal though. A little bit of fleshy abundance going to be popped on said Plague Toads. Mossy doing a great job just maintaining the objectives. He's got this side objective just about capped. Yep, up there. He did at least. This side objective did actually get capped. So he's maintaining a slight, ever so slight lead. Yep, both of these objectives in his favor now, but the one Nurgling that had capped it definitely meeting a rough fate right in the center of this little street here. just exploding into a pile of sick. Very appropriate. Soul Grinder beam in the distance there, just lighting up like a freaking laser beam. I guess that is what it is, kind of. But anyway, interesting that these two unit models have attack animations as well, or seemingly have some matched combat animations. Not exactly right there, but we've seen some earlier. And guess who's back? Yes, that's right. Saved up enough supply to get the great big guy. Not the Great Unclean One. Great Unclean One's going to get hunted down by the Exalted Bloodthirster. Khorne is his nickname. That's the Exalted Bloodthirster on campaign, right? On the campaign map. Leads the Crimson Skull faction. So I'm going to go with Khorne as the nickname for this guy. So Khorne's going to come in here. And a little bit of a landing bug. They're kind of just playing peekaboo. Playing some sort of child game. You know, take your pick of whatever that might be. But the Great Unclean One will go down relatively shortly as soon as I can start getting some attack animations in. Honestly, does bring out some support units to try and salvage the situation, try and get some help, but the Great Unclean One just doesn't have enough health left to stand. He is finally going to go down as the Soul Grinder charges back into the center, continuing to hold the toads and the spawn and everything away from the objective. Keep that capture weight in my favor. There it is, folks. Just barely starting to come within range to pull ahead. And it has been very close up until now. My opponent's done a great job of just contesting the objectives, and even still, like, throwing this Vanguard Nurgling over here just to pull my hounds away. Maybe he can get his other units up and through, just force away from Khorne here, away from the Exalted Bloodthirster, and just try and get on the objective more than anything. Same thing with these Nurglings, folding back, just pressuring all over the field. Can be tricky to do as Nurgle, definitely. Given their general slow speed as a faction, but I'm just now about to pull ahead, like right about now. Yep, literally right now. And with that, I'm in a pretty comfortable position. The mobility advantage of this giant hound strike force that I've managed to kind of develop and maintain throughout the course of the battle. At this point, there's not a lot of response from Nurgle because they're so slow, and because even their fast response units, they wouldn't have the punching power to take out a big blob of flesh hounds like this. So it was really all hands on deck for me for this win, I have to say. Yeah, I want to try this build and similar type builds in more Nurgle games, but it does seem like the elite Khorne units, I mean, just in melee, they just do so much work. Their stats are so good that even with debuffs, Nurgle has a hard time competing and actually fighting those units in prolonged combat. Like, yes, you can try and heal and just sustain through the damage, but even with that, often Khorne can just put out so much damage that even healing through it, you will still lose often. So it's an interesting matchup for sure. I definitely think Nurgle is in a much better place after the update, no doubt about that. Still have some pretty even and unfavorable matchups, but they do have some matchups now where I think they can shine reasonably well. We'll have to explore some more of those in the future, but for now, this is pretty much it. We'll keep it in cinematic cam of this handful of bloodletters. We'll check their value after the fact, and you guys will be amazed. This is my new favorite infantry unit, and although I still think Forsaken of Tzeentch are really strong for a multitude of different reasons, I am starting more and more, especially after the magic spell resistance was removed from the Tzeentch Forsaken. I think these guys are probably the best infantry in the game now. I mean, purely in terms of quality, they are unarguably the best infantry in the game. Here, one unit able to get 3,425 value. Keep in mind it did resummon them twice, but even still, the other two still managed to pay for themselves as well. Soul Grinder also manages to pay for itself twice, which is very impressive, considering I did use it twice. Exalted Bloodthirster, not quite there, but still very good performance all around. Flesh Hounds also really great job in terms of value. You do get inflated value. Mossy did a great job of just getting tons and tons of healing out and sustaining through the damage. Almost was able to hold on for the win there. But, yeah, you know, the Soul Grinder did perform well enough that I think it's a decent tool in this matchup to try and contest in some of those big, heavy fights. The extra 2 volleys, you know, how much of the extra 2 to 3 volleys you could have got with the mortar on the approach, how much of a difference that would have made, it's hard to say. Probably not enough. Biggest thing, I think, was him just getting held off of the objective, and maybe a few of the Fury summons were not the greatest idea. It did end up getting some okay value back, but just against Khorne, even as Nurgle, with Furies being one of your only really mobile units, you just don't do a lot against Khorne. Like, most fact, all Khorne units that I can think of, except I guess the 400 cost hounds, are gonna beat Furies in melee just straight up. So I don't love Furies generally in this matchup. I think maybe swap them out and then resummon some more Plague Bears, or maybe get another Exalted Plague Bear out. I think generally you want to take as many Exalted Plague Bears as you can in most matchups right now for Nurgle. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.